This is a Pininfarina Battista, and it's a serious hypercar. In terms of performance, it has almost 2,000 horsepower. In terms of pricing, it starts around $2.5 million. And in terms of rarity, they're only going to build 150 of these for the entire planet. But the Battista is different from most other hypercars in one key area: it's fully electric. Today, I'm going to review the Pininfarina Battista and show you all of its amazing quirks and features. Today's video is sponsored by Cars and Bids, which is my online car auction website for modern enthusiast cars. So far, Cars and Bids has hosted more than 20,000 car auctions of special, cool, and interesting cars like this, and this, and this, and this. So, if you're looking to buy or sell an enthusiast car, do it on Cars and Bids. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Pininfarina Battista, and let's start with the basics. Pininfarina is, of course, the famous Italian design studio responsible for creating some of the most famous car designs of all time, specifically best known for their working relationship with Ferrari that lasted for decades. And the Battista is Pininfarina's very first car that's their own, with their own branding and badging rather than a design they created for someone else. And I'm very grateful to Pininfarina Newport Beach for letting me come and review the Pininfarina Battista. You can check out Pininfarina Newport Beach on Instagram or their website by clicking the link in the description below. So, what exactly is the Battista? Well, like I said, it's a hypercar, and a fully electric one with about 230 miles of fully electric range according to the EPA. Now, the Battista shares some of its components, batteries, structural, with the other EV hypercar, the Rimac Nevera, although Pininfarina assures me they've made a lot of changes to the Battista to distinguish it from the Nevera, including, obviously, the design. This car looks quite different, but also the chassis tuning, the drive modes, the interior feel and materials and layout, the way it steers, handles, accelerates, all of it has been upgraded, updated, and changed by Pininfarina. They just use the same basic kind of underpinnings from the Rimac Nevera. As for pricing, deep into hypercar territory. Like I mentioned, starting price around $2.5 million. This car has a sticker price of just under $3 million. It's a massive price tag, but then it has massive performance. Just under 1,900 horsepower. Which is, of course, insane. And that propels this car from 0 to 60 in under 1.9 seconds. Probably the fastest accelerating car on the planet. It also does a top speed of 217 miles an hour, so it's deep into ultimate high-performance car territory in terms of performance. To me, the amazing thing about those performance numbers is that they come in spite of this car's 4,400-pound curb weight, which isn't massive, but it's not exactly light, especially for a performance car. As you can imagine, a lot of that curb weight is due to the batteries, which take up about a third of it, roughly 1,500 pounds of batteries in the Battista. But let's talk quirks and features, and we'll start with the key. This is what the key looks like to a Pininfarina Battista. You will never see this key again. I will never see this key again, but here's what it looks like. The Pininfarina logo on one side, you flip it over and you have your buttons, lock, unlock, the trunk, and Pininfarina written in the famous font down the side. That is your Pininfarina Battista key. Next up, once you've unlocked the doors, it's time to open them, and of course, they open up. This car has these these cool butterfly doors like a supercar, a hypercar should, give it the drama that you'd expect from a car like this. And there's more drama when you open the doors to discover little hidden Easter eggs on the side. You can see here on the driver's side, this is an image of this particular car on the production line and then transferred by hand painting onto the door, which looks tremendously cool. Over on the passenger side, here's an image of the production line itself, where they actually build the Pininfarina grafted onto the inside of the door. You'd only see this little Easter egg when you open up the door. And you can see here it also says where everything starts, because of course that's true of the production line of this car or any car. Now here you can also see Battista sort of signed like a signature, and it is indeed a signature because this car is named after a person. Pininfarina was the founder of Pininfarina and of course this car's namesake, and so his signature appears in various places on the inside and outside of the car that bears his name. But anyway, next we climb inside and discover all of the amazing quirks and features in here, starting with the starter button, although that term really undersells what this is. It's a circular button screen that's mounted on this cool panel. It almost looks like a jet engine exhaust. To start the car, you push on the button screen, that wakes it up, and then you twist the outer edge of this screen, this circular dial, and that changes gear, park, reverse, neutral, drive, as you can see. Pretty cool. Now over on the other side, mounted on the driver door panel, you have another little screen dial, and that changes your drive mode, and you can adjust between several different drive modes that again Pininfarina developed just for the Battista, different from the Rimac Nevera. Now it's at this point that I should mention that the Pininfarina Battista is equipped with various hidden speakers inside and out that project a noise that's intended to match the drive mode that you've chosen. So if you go into the calm drive mode, the car is mostly quiet and calm. But if you choose the highest performance drive mode, Furiosa, then the car emanates this sort of hum, like it's pulsating, even when it's just sitting still from these hidden external mounted speakers. I guess the thinking is it's trying to replicate the sound that an engine would make at idle, but instead this car's electric, it's futuristic, so it has this sort of aggressive hum that gets more aggressive as you get more aggressive through the drive modes, which is a pretty interesting idea. And of course, as you accelerate, the hum gets louder to simulate that acceleration. More on that later when I get behind the wheel. Now, it's also important to point out that these dials to turn on the car and adjust the gear or to adjust the drive mode, they're metal, not plastic. They're metal and they feel fantastic. You touch them with your hands, the feel, the weight is just wonderful. And that's also true of a lot of the other controls in this interior. For instance, in the center control stack, all of these are also metal. Even though they're simple controls for the windshield defroster, the power windows, driver and passenger side, the hazard lights, they're all metal controls. They look great, they feel great. I guess they should be on a car this expensive. And the metal controls go beyond just that. Take a look at the door handle. On the door panel, you lift it to get out. It's also metal and it feels great to touch. In fact, they've even integrated metal controls onto the steering wheel, where you have a lot of your driver and vehicle controls. Your turn signals are mounted here, your Bluetooth phone operation is here, your wipers, your high beams, your cruise control, all mounted on the steering wheel with these metal buttons that feel fantastic to touch. It's cool they've integrated the metal even onto the wheel. And also on the wheel, also on a metal button, is your vehicle axle lifter. You want to lift to clear something, you just press that and the car goes up. You don't have to go into any infotainment menu, takes a few seconds, you're holding up traffic, just push the button and you're up right on the steering wheel. And speaking of metal, in in the center, in between the seat backs, you have a plaque here with some special words on it. It tells you that this was made with love in Italy, where everything starts. That comes back again. And it also reminds you this is one of just 150 units for the entire world. This car is tremendously limited production. You'll notice this plaque is also screwed in with some special and unusual screws. Remember those. We'll come back to them a little later. But next, moving on from the plaque, let's go to the glove box. This car has one. You open it up with a little button mounted under the dashboard. It automatically pops open, and you can see the supports for the glove box are billet aluminum, which looks pretty cool. It also makes for just about the sturdiest glove box you can imagine. If you want more storage, go back in between the seats. You can see this little pocket here opens up. It's not huge, but it does deliver some storage capacity in the interior of the Battista. There's also a little storage compartment here in the center console. It's carbon fiber, but it's intended to be a spot where you put your phone. You can see this little pad at the bottom keeps it from sliding around, and there's a little depression where you could have a cord stuck in if you wanted to do that. Now, speaking of the center console, some interesting items worth noting in here. For one, this car has cup holders, although perhaps more appropriately it has cup holder, just one in the back. The front one is triangular and really doesn't look large enough for any rational sized cup. Also here in the center console, you have this little toggle switch that allows you to adjust the stereo track and make a few other stereo changes. I'll show you that more in a minute. And you can twist it to adjust your volume, turn it up or down. You also have this spot in the center, which is designed to hold the key. When you climb inside the car, you're supposed to stick the key here. You can see this piece even says key, and it fits snugly right into place right here in the center, so it will stay put while you're driving around in your Battista, even when you're doing pulls with 1900 horsepower. Now, also in the center console, and a very unusual control in this car, is the switch to adjust the rear wing. You can see it right here. You can put it up or down, and it's almost a handle, not even just a switch. It's quite large. Again, it's metal. It feels good. It has a nice weight. It's an unusually large thing for something you're probably not going to do all that often, and it's positioned right in the middle in your line of touch. I guess they figure you'll be putting the wing up and down a lot. And that's how you do it. Now, I'll get to the wing a little bit more in a second because there are some hidden Easter eggs back there. But first, we must discuss the screens. There are quite a few in this interior, and they have some interesting functions. So the left screen to the left of the steering wheel can do a few different things. The most important is it controls your basic vehicle function. So you use this screen to, for example, turn on the headlights if you want to turn them on, but also to adjust the brightness of the screens inside, or to adjust the mirrors. There's no power mirror control switch. It's all done in the screens. In fact, you even fold the mirrors in the screens. You just swipe the mirror closed, and then the mirror folds, which I find to be absolutely lovely. And amazingly, you even control the seats here. You can move the seats forward, backward, up, down, and not just the driver's seat, but the passenger seat. In fact, the passenger has no seat controls for their seat. It's all adjusted through the driver's screen. So if you're the passenger in a Battista, you have to ask the driver very nicely to adjust your seat up, down, forward, or backwards until you're comfortable, because you can't do it yourself. Now, also found in this screen, you can personalize how the car responds in each drive mode. So each drive mode has a screen within the screen, and when you go into the mode, there is a default setting for that drive mode, but then you can make personalization changes to, for example, tighten up the steering, firm up the suspension, increase the regen braking within that drive mode. And you can make these changes for every drive mode. It's quite a bit of vehicle personalization in here. This screen also gives you some general vehicle information, like, for example, your tire pressures and even your tire temperatures, which is pretty cool, and also other stuff like your range, battery usage, that sort of thing, all in your driver's side screen. Next, we move to the center screen, which almost looks like a vertically placed smartphone just sitting there above the steering wheel. Now, this screen only has your basics, as you might expect. It's right in your line of sight, so it tells you what gear you're in, how fast you're going, how much charge you have, have left, what drive mode you're in. Again, only your very basics right below where you're looking while you drive. And then your final major screen is to the right of the steering wheel, and this functions sort of like a fairly basic infotainment system. It doesn't have all the cool fixins you might get from some automakers, but you get a stereo system in this car, of course, so you use this to play music and select media. You also have a navigation system, so you have a map here that's fairly responsive, and of course, input a destination and it'll tell you how to get where you're going. There's Bluetooth, so you can control your phone in here, and you use this screen to adjust your climate controls. So you tap on the temperature and it pulls up the whole climate control panel, and you can change the temperature, the airflow, where the air is coming out, etc. Now, this car, even for almost $3 million, does not have dual zone climate control. It's just one zone for the whole interior, but you do have heated seats, driver and passenger heated seats, which is a nice luxury touch for the Battista. Now, you also have one other screen, in addition to those three, plus the screen buttons to start the car and change the drive mode. You also have a screen for the rear view mirror. You can see the mirror is just a mirror right now, but if you flip the center switch, it becomes a screen that's showing you an image from a camera mounted on the outside of the car. Having a rear view mirror camera, I think it's a great feature for all cars, but it's especially great for a hypercar with compromised rear visibility like the Battista. So, you might be wondering, what exactly is compromising the rear visibility? Since there's no big engine back there, what's taking up the rear window space? Let's check it out. The answer is that it's a cargo area, a small one, but a cargo area nonetheless. And you can see that it fits two important bags that come with the car. At the top and the front, you have this bag which contains your charging cables. Obviously, you need those to charge it. Below that, you have another bag, also tailor-made for this car to fit into this spot, that contains some important items you might need to operate the car. For instance, you can see there's a trickle charger in here to keep the secondary battery charged. You also have an air compressor to pump up a tire in case you have a tire issue while you're driving around in your Battista. In this little Battista bag, you have a road safety vest, and there's some miscellaneous tools in here also, including the center lock for the wheels. In the upper part of this bag, you have the towing eye, a road triangle, and this little Pininfarina key. Remember earlier when I told you to keep in mind those unusual screws on the plaque in the interior? Well, this key can release those screws and take off the plaque. Why would you ever want to do that? Well, you wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense, but you can with this specialized key. Now, of course, you could also take these two bags out of the cargo area completely, and then you have the cargo area for whatever you might want to put back here. Probably the most interesting thing, though, about this cargo area is accessing it. You can't just push a button in back and it opens right up. Instead, you gotta touch this little switch in the interior and hold it in place, and the cargo area door automatically opens itself up. When you want to close it, same deal, touch the switch and hold it in place until the cargo area door is closed. If you just tap the switch, the door will close a little bit, but not all the way. You gotta keep holding it down. Now, thankfully, there is a second way to operate this cargo door on the key fob. You can press and hold this button and it'll pop open automatically or pop closed, but you don't manually open or close anything. The car does it automatically for you. Now, back here, some other interesting items worth noting. Something else that opens is this little flap, which contains the charge port. That's where the charge port is located. Open that up, that's where you plug the car in, and when you have it plugged in, a very cool feature, this little window with the Pininfarina logo inside, it pulses. It sort of lights up to let you know that the car is charging, which is cool. Now, back here you also have a few other interesting quirks and features, starting with the rear wing. You can see it's big and extended right now because I've pulled the lever in the interior to open it up. And the reason I've done that is so you can see the designs underneath the wing. This car has custom hand-painted designs that show the car on one side, as you can see, pretty cool, and over on the other side it shows sort of an image of the area where the car is built. Again, hand-painted, special, custom, and you wouldn't see them unless the wing was up. But when it is up, there they are, adding kind of a cool little special quirk to this car. And obviously Pininfarina will work with customers to put other special designs of their own liking onto the rear wing to add some personalization and customization to their car. Now back here you can also see the taillights, of course, which almost look like they're floating in place. The taillights have a cool purpose. They actually are part of an aerodynamic component. You can see they're lifted up above this panel and air flows all the way through it from the side of the car, not just under bodywork, but under the taillight itself, which is part of this aero panel. It's a pretty cool feature. Now, as for the general look of this car, I gotta say, I think it's beautiful. It's a really attractive, well-proportioned, nicely styled and designed car. No surprise, Pininfarina knows what they're doing in this area especially, and they've done a great job. This car, the exterior styling is not too fussy, not overdone, but it's also not so simple that it's generic. Frankly, I think it looks really good from basically every angle. A very nice, attractive, well-proportioned car. If anything, I think it looks a little like modern Ferrari design language, which started off with the 458, but then that makes sense because Pininfarina designed that car too. It's always been beautiful, and Ferrari's been using that design language ever since in all of their cars, and it makes sense that Pininfarina would have sort of a similar look since it was originally their design. But overall, I think a very beautiful car. And a few interesting quirks and features to note up here. For one, you walk up to the car and there's no immediately visible door handle. It's located in here, inside this giant intake. You tap on a rubber pad and then it electronically pops the door open and you can open it the rest of the way yourself. Another item worth noting, on the side of the car you can see the tires. These are Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires, basically racing tires for the road, as close as you can get to a racing tire and still keep them street legal. Apparently it's the only tire they could find that could handle the massive amount of power that this car puts down. One interesting thing, speaking of the wheels and tires, is that the windshield washer fluid reservoir is located here inside the wheel well on the passenger side. And if you want to add washer fluid, you'd get in the car, turn the wheel all the way to the left, and then it just kind of pops open and you add washer fluid. It's a different spot than anywhere I've seen it before. But the reason they do that is this front compartment remains closed. It's for servicing only. There's no front trunk in this car, storage space of any kind. This part is fixed in place. So the washer fluid's got to go somewhere, and it's there. The other thing worth noting about the front, probably the only design element of this car that I don't like, is this LED light bar that goes across the front end. I'm a fan of LED light bars, but this one looks almost a little cheap and almost a little aftermarket. It's not exactly my favorite look on the car. Again, I think the general design is overall beautiful, but I would say that that's one little area where it fell short. I'm sure they were going for distinctive, but to me, it just doesn't really look that great. But with all of the quirks and features displayed and shown, now it's time to get behind the wheel and see what it's like to drive a 1900 horsepower hypercar that does 0 to 60 in 1.8 something seconds. Let's see. All right, driving the Battista. Now, this thing has a surprising amount of a sense of occasion to it. I think one of the things that people are concerned about with EV supercars, sports cars, hypercars is that they don't sort of have that feel that like a exotic car, the big old V10 or V12 has. But this car, just getting in it, looking around it, climbing in the door is so cool. The drive modes, the push button starter, and then the sounds that it makes when you're driving. There's sounds that come in. They're obviously, not engine sounds from an engine, but they really all sort of enhance your experience to give you some of the drama back that you would have had in a, real normal supercar with a big engine behind you. This actually feels surprisingly comfortable considering what it is. Now I'm only in the Energica mode. Obviously there's a Furiosa mode that I could get into that would probably beat me up a little bit more, but it feels surprisingly nice and comfortable in here for a car like this. It's definitely not really what I was expecting. All right, I'm gonna step on it here. Oh, that was about a quarter throttle. It still feels like the fastest thing I've ever been in. Oh my God. Wow, this is unbelievably fast. I'm like afraid to give it full throttle. We're on Cup 2s, or we're on a surface street, and I know if I give it full throttle for even a second on a surface street, we're gonna be twice the legal speed limit. There is some tire noise from those Cup 2Rs, which is not really a surprise considering they're sort of like a racing tire for the road. Oh man, this car has so much power. It's absolutely crazy. Oh, it is just so incredibly, I'm terrified to floor it completely. I really don't think I'm a qualified individual to do that. It is just so incredibly fast. Now, it's hard to get a real feel for handling a car like this unless you're out there on the racetrack, like going really hard. But I will say, the steering is quite direct and very, very quick. It has the feel of a true sports car to it in the way that it instantly changes directions, much like some of the very best other modern supercars. 488 Pista is sort of my benchmark for really quick steering changes, direction changes, and this car can do just that. It feels similar. All right, here we go. Oh my God. Wow. That is the fastest thing I have ever experienced in my entire life. I think I only have room to do it one more time. I'm gonna try. Oh, the speed is unbelievable. It is impossible to explain or describe how fast it feels. Oh. Wow. That is absolutely wild. What an unbelievable party trick. Every electric car feels fast because of the instant power and torque. This one feels on a totally different level. Honestly, it feels faster than Plaid. They claim the 0 to 60 is a little quicker than Plaid. It's 0.1 seconds, imperceptible. But because you're lower and because they pipe in this sound and you hear the tires, it gives you kind of this special supercar feel that you can't get in a car like that. Oh my God, it's oh. I have never experienced this. In all the crazy supercars I have ever driven, I have never experienced anything like this level of acceleration. That is totally crazy. And it's not just a party trick for acceleration. You know, this car is at top speed at like almost 220 miles an hour. This is a serious supercar. It's also really amazing to me, truthfully, just how nice it feels in here. This car delivers an unbelievable amount of acceleration while also still giving you a pretty nice interior and a nice driving experience and driving feel. Like, this car is actually reasonably luxurious and calm, dare I say, despite the performance level. And it's only when you really get on it and you really start to hear the rocket ship sound spool up that you really feel like you're in something absolutely crazy. Hard to believe, but you could almost make the point that this car is daily drivable, or at least frequently usable, just given how relatively comfortable, high-tech, and rational it almost is in here, despite the crazy speed. This car really is amazing. And I understand the complaints regarding the engine sound, and it doesn't have a V12 or a W16 or whatever, but it really delivers an amazing amount of drama and almost like a similar experience to a car with a true engine, given all the sounds that it makes and how incredible the drama is. Plus, it just is so incredibly, unbelievably fast in a way that gas cars just aren't right now. And it also feels surprisingly confident when you're going that fast. The car feels very planted, very solid. It feels like a very well-built car. You'd expect that given the price tag, over $2 million, but it really does deliver sort of a nice luxury experience like a Bugatti, and like a solid car that doesn't leave you feeling like it's a kit car like some of these cars can. but with the unbelievable acceleration to match. I'm very impressed with this car. It really has a lot of amazing traits, and it is quite a thing to drive this car and feel this acceleration, and yet still feel like you're in a pretty competent, modern, well-executed sports car. And so that's the Pininfarina Battista, one of the craziest hypercars around, with amazing performance, tremendous acceleration, and some wonderful quirks and features. And now it's time to give the Battista a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 69 out of 100, which places the Battista here against rivals. It's a respectable showing, and the Battista really is a thrill, despite complaints from a lot of people that an EV hypercar can't be one. It can. The Battista is legitimately fun, engaging, exciting, amazing, and beautiful. And yet, it's just not the same. Not quite the same. And I think people at this price point really want an engine, something truly special, a quad-turbo W16 or a naturally aspirated V12 or a V8 from a race car. The Battista delivers a lot of the goods, but at this price point where there are many options, it's a bit of a tough sell. If it looked like that with a smooth, well-designed V12 and 3 pedals, we'd be having a different conversation.